So today we saw a lot of red in the big mega cap tech stocks, and if you take a look into the Nasdaq Index ETF QQQ, we see a lot of pain. In fact, I want to switch over to Tesla because we see even more pain with Tesla stock today falling a tremendous amount. Now this comes just after Tesla announced its earnings where it went ahead and beat in revenue. However, one of the things I pointed out in yesterday's video is that we did see a compression in gross profit margins, as well as we also heard Elon Musk say that Q3 production numbers may be slowed down due to upgrades in global factories. However, it wasn't the entire market that was red, because if you look at several other different sectors and industries, there were a lot of stocks that had very bullish green days. And so in this video, I want to go ahead and break down what's going on with Tesla, what are some things we're going to see going forward, and also talk about it from the perspective of a long-term investor, but also someone who's trading Tesla stock in the short term. But I also want to cover a few things before we go ahead and take a look into Tesla. For example, today we had some economic data come out today, with one of the data points being the leading economic indicator. Now we saw that it has fallen down for the 15th consecutive month, which is not good because this is pretty much an overview of the overall economy. Now, if we go ahead and parse through the data for the leading economic indicator, one of the only things holding it up has been stock prices. Pretty much the rallies that we recently had has been holding it up, but if you take that away, everything else has been pretty much coming down. And so this paints a picture of a looming recession incoming. Now I know a lot of individuals are gonna say, hey, you know, we've been seeing the headlines of recession talks for a while in the media. Is the recession actually gonna come? When is it coming, right? And one of the things I really wanna highlight is the fact that a recession just doesn't happen overnight. It's not like everything's all sunny and then you see a bunch of dark clouds come and then everything changes instantly, right? In fact, if we pay attention and just think back into 2008, I know a lot of individuals are gonna think, hey, you know, the recession happened overnight, but it really didn't. In fact, it really all kind of started 2 years earlier in 2006, then getting closer to everything really falling down in 2008. So in this video, I want to go ahead and, you know, hop into my laptop, talk about Tesla, break down a couple of things, you know, going forward. But before we do so, I do want to highlight for you guys to make sure to check out the links in the description below, because one of the links is going to be a link to join the, you know, Push and Profit private group, where every single day you guys get access to my daily briefings where I go ahead and talk more in depth about the overall situation in the economy and the current markets, and I also provide daily trade ideas. But there's also another link in the description below where you guys have a free access to my weekly newsletter, where every single Sunday typically I go ahead and send an email out talking about what are some things that we should pay attention to as market participants going on in the overall, you know, stock market or in the economy. So definitely, you know, take advantage of one of those links, or, you know, maybe both of them perhaps. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about Tesla a little bit further. Alrighty, so we are officially in my laptop taking a look at Tesla from a weekly time frame, and one of the things you're going to notice is this trend line right over here. Right now, if you guys are familiar with the channel or with myself, you guys know that I don't put too much weight on technical analysis, as it's only one data point. However, it still is one data point that we want to talk about. Now, I already warned the Push and Profit private group about Tesla's earnings. However, I want to show you guys a snippet of what I said. Right now, this is excluding everything else I said, but I said, hey, you know, keeping an eye on Tesla this week, and this was done 3 days ago. I said Tesla's recent surge has led it exactly to the extended downward trend line. Now, what trend line am I talking about? This one right here, this downward trend line, right? Now, I also have stated that, you know, there have been several rejection points at this level. If we take a look at this trend line, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Along with that, I also said Tesla continues to be the most popular amongst retail, right? And this is in terms of people who are trading or investing long term. And retail primarily only looks at technical analysis, right? Retail pretty much only looks at the charts, and that's why, you know, I put a little bit more emphasis on Tesla stock when it comes to technical analysis, because a lot of the people who are invested in Tesla or trading Tesla, they're only looking at the charts. I say this all the time, you know, it's a small, you know, data point, but if this is the data point that mostly retail retail uses, and Tesla is, filled with a majority of retail, then, it's going to have much more weight, right? I say this all the time to hedge funds, institutional investors. They don't just, look at the squiggly lines on the chart. They look at several other data points, right? They look at the economic conditions. They look at monetary policy, fiscal policy. They use alternative data. I mean, they use resources that, regular people like you and I don't have access to. For example, there's been times where, hedge funds have used alternative data like paying for satellites to, see the activity in a parking lot for a Walmart and comparing that to Target, right? None of us, we don't have the resources to do that, right? So, of course, hedge funds have much more data, but, as I said, retail primarily focuses on technical analysis, and this was a big area that we wanted to focus on. Now, in particularly, I was not a big fan of Tesla's earnings. Even though we did beat the revenue expectations, we still saw that compression in margin, which we knew. I mean, it was a little bit surprising that it wasn't so bad, but it still was a signal where we saw margins diminish. And then in the earnings call where we heard the forward guidance from Elon, we've also heard that there's a possibility that margins may compress even further due to more price cuts, right? And so, of course, Elon always talks in the long term, and I definitely am bullish on Tesla in the long term myself, right? I have exposure to Tesla in my long term portfolio, but the thing is, Wall Street doesn't care about the long term, right? They only look at quarter over quarter, profits, revenues, etc., right? And so, with Elon Musk saying, hey, we're thinking about licensing FSD to other legacy automakers, and, we are already in talks with a few of them to go ahead and do this so that we could go ahead and generate, more revenue and boost profit margins. People like myself, I see that as very bullish and optimistic in the long term, right? But the problem is Wall Street, they don't know how to, put any valuation to that because there's no numbers showing, okay, well, how much is Tesla going to make from other automakers, licensing FSD. Right? And so that's the one thing that you have to understand. However, this provides an opportunity for retail investors against Wall Street, right? Because again, Wall Street is very myopic. They look at things very short-sightedly. And if you're a retail investor, well, this is probably the time where you're going to go ahead and want to, start adding more into your position. I say this all the time, and it's weird that I have to say this, but I like to buy when things are at a discount, right? We've heard Warren Buffett in several interviews state like how everyone's excited to go to the grocery shop or grocery store and buy products on sale, but when it comes to investing long term, we don't look at that for the stock market. People like paying elevated prices, and that's why we see people get, into a lot of pain. And so when we saw Tesla stock rallying up this entire year, that's where we saw a lot of individuals kind of piling onto Tesla. But no one was really hyped about Tesla when Tesla stock was falling down, when, this is really the time where you want to be, adding more into Tesla. And so right now, as I'm saying, is this presents an opportunity for long-term investors if you see value in Tesla in the long term. Again, you should never trade or invest based on anyone else's opinion. You should always do your due diligence and only trade in whatever you see value in or invest in whatever you see value in, right? But one of the things I'm going to be looking at for my long-term portfolio, right? And this is why I made by the way, this is why I made a bull and bear case for Tesla, right? Because we can't just be, a perma bull or a perma bear, right? Because we have to be realistic, right? Stocks just don't go forever down or forever up, right? Obviously things move. And so one of the things I mentioned in previous videos is, hey, if Tesla does have, a bad reaction to earnings, which, I mean, if we zoom in, you could clearly see that. One of the things I'm going to be looking at for, just a long-term perspective is Tesla going to go ahead and fall down to this area right around over here where we're kind of like in the 190s, right? Now, the reason I said that is because over here, that's where we see a lot of volume by price, right? That means that there's a lot of activity between the bid and the ask, and there's a lot of trading volume right around this price level. And that's why we see, supports and resistances created. That's where we see supports over here, resistances over here. And this is where we kind of see, things kind of slightly move sideways because there's a lot of people trading on both sides, people buying, people selling. As you move out of the areas where there's less volume relative to price, And as long as there's one directional movement, either a lot of buying pressure or selling pressure, we see big pops. I mean, right over here where we see very little volume by price, we see there's a lot of buying pressure. Tesla moves upwards, right? Little sideways activity, right? In fact, if we kind of zoom out, the most trading volume relative to price is right around here, and that's where we see the most consolidation. So back to what I was saying for the bear case for Tesla, I want to see, for my long-term portfolio, is Tesla going to go ahead and fall down to this area? And if it does so, well, I want to see how it holds up over here, right? Of course, we're going to want a snapshot of the fundamentals eventually in the next quarter. But if we don't get that by then, we're just going to have to rely on several other data points and see, hey, based on price action, is Tesla going to go hold up around over here? And if it does, I want to see if it bounces up, because that could be an area to go ahead and add more to my long-term portfolio, right? Now, everyone's going to have their own, opinion on how they should invest in long-term. And of course, there's so many different research papers debating on whether you should just add equally each month or should you add in a lump sum. I'm not here to tell you which is better. You guys should just see whatever works best for you. But I like to invest a lump sum every time I see a good buying opportunity. So this is where your mouths should start salivating for Tesla as it's kind of selling off, because hey, if you're someone who's optimistic for Tesla in the long term, this is the buying opportunity. Now, talking about Tesla from the short term, right? I mentioned on the channel a few times where I'm not going to be shorting Tesla in my short-term trading account as it falls down, simply because Tesla has a lot of catalyst events that could propel it up. However, I'm going to switch my view a little bit, and going forward into the next few trading sessions, if we continue to see Tesla falling down, I may short Tesla in my short-term trading account, and I'm going to go ahead and explain why. But before I do so, I also want to explain how I could trade Tesla and also invest into Tesla in the long term. I think it's fairly understandable for most people on how I do that, but I do get some comments from individuals asking how. So for my long-term portfolio, that's in a separate, different brokerage account. That's where I invest in mostly index funds and a few individual stocks like Tesla, right? That's where I buy and hold. In a separate trading account, that's where I go ahead and do my short-term trades. So they're separate, right? Because trading and investing are two separate vehicles, and I don't like to get them mixed up, right? And so in the past, I've said, hey, if Tesla falls down, I don't want to short it. And in fact, I want to zoom in a little bit. There was a time where Tesla was, we jumped up. This was the gap from the delivery numbers. And it was right around here, the day before this big sell-off, I mentioned, hey, we're most likely going to fill up this gap by falling down, but I still don't plan on shorting Tesla because we could have more catalyst events, such as the Cybertruck or more EV companies kind of joining the Tesla charging station or network, right? And so we did fall down, and I didn't short at that time. Why? Because as I said, there was a lot of catalyst events that could boost Tesla upwards. And then in the next few days, we had, the announcement of the Cybertruck. We also had some more legacy automakers joining the, Tesla supercharging network. And so I didn't want to short back then, right? Now, why is my perspective changing in the short term, right? Because in the short term, you could change things a lot more faster, right? Why is it changing? Well, here's the thing, right? We already know that going into Q3, we know Q3 is when Tesla typically makes the most deliveries, right? And so that's where it has like the strongest, revenues and profits, etc. But we already know going into Q3 that, Elon mentioned production is going to be stifled a bit due to upgrades in a lot of the global factories. Also, we already got the update or the catalyst event of the Cybertruck, right? So we already got the optimism from that news, and it's not going to be too optimistic anymore, right? Because we were expecting Elon to give, positive views on, prices for the Cybertruck or dates, and we didn't get anything. And I think even as we start falling down and we do get updates on the Cybertruck, I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to push Tesla stock a tremendous amount upwards, right? Especially even if we get updates on more legacy automakers joining the supercharging network. I don't think it's going to be anything of any significance. And so if Tesla does fall down in the short term, it'll be a mini opportunity. and my short-term trading account to go ahead and profit off the fluctuation in price. Today, I didn't short Tesla. I actually just did a quick scalp trade on Amazon. I called out a trade on Amazon today in the Push and Profit private group. It didn't necessarily hit our target price. If you were part of the Push and Profit private group, I said, hey, once Amazon hits around, I believe it is 135.40, that's when I want to short. It never hit our target for entry. It kind of just moved up a bit and sold off. But pretty much as it was selling off right around here in the beginning of the day, I ended up still shorting Amazon, even though it wasn't exactly near our entry level I called out in the private group. But, there's opportunities out there, especially when, things are falling down this heavily, right? Because as soon as I saw, wow, the overall market's not looking too good, this is a good time to short in the short term, right? But with that said, again, you guys should only trade and invest in whatever you see value in. Make sure to check out the links in the description below, because one of the links is going to be a link so you guys could get my daily trade ideas, like what I called out for Amazon or any future trading ideas. And also make sure to check out the free newsletter, which is completely free, where every single week I just write an email talking about what's currently going on that we want to really pay attention to. With that said, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I don't want to make it too long. I want to keep it short, sweet, and concise. And I'll see you guys on this next video right over here. Take care, guys.